Okay, so as many of y'all might know, the seven interest or seven wonders of the world are the Chichen Itza, Christ the Redeemer, the Great Wall of China, Machu Picchu, Petra, the Taj Mahal, and the Col- Colosseum. And you might be wondering how this relates to finance. So all of these were meticulously built, and they're known as the seven wonders of the world because of how difficult or the engineering might have seemed. But the eighth wonder of the world is known as compound interest. So this is a quote from Albert Einstein. He said that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world because he who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. So if you understand compound interest, then you would know that it helps you earn so much money, but if it doesn't, it can put you into crippling debt. Oh, and then what is compound interest? So compound interest is when you earn interest on your money, and on the interest you have already earned, so your money grows faster over time. So basically, the type of interest that is calculated on the original amount and the interest that has already been added is coming together, meaning you earn interest on top of interest, which increases your money or also has the potential to decrease it. So this is the formula for compound interest. It is the final amount is equal to the starting amount, also known as the principal, times 1 plus the annual rate of interest rate as a decimal over the number of times interest is compounded per year times or to the power or t, it's to the power of t. And this is different from the simple interest formula because it's exponential. So the growth would be exponential as compared to if it's only simple interest, the growth would be linear. So it could grow or it could depreciate over time depending on like the interest rate. So here is an example. If you start with $1,000 and you invest it at 5% compounded once per year for 3 years, you would earn $157.63, which is more than the 1,000 that you originally start with. So this works because of the formula on the previous slide. And the 0.05 is the annual interest divided by 1, or yeah, 1 because it was compounded once per year. And it's to the power of 3 because, it's to the power of 3 because it was um, compounded for 3 years. Next is the rule of 72. And this just tells us, this tells us about how your money or how long it takes for your money to double. And for an example, if you start with a 4% interest rate and you start investing at the age of 29 with an initial rate of or initial amount of $10,000, it'll take you 18 years to get to 20,000. So you can get this by doing 72 divided by the interest rate, which is 4%. So that gives you 18 years. Now we can compare this to the next column over, where we can see that if you start with 20 or start at the age of 29 with $10,000 and you do 72 divided by 6, then it shows that it takes you 12 years to double that amount. So all the way on the very last column, we can see that using a higher interest rate, it'll take a less amount of time for that money to double. So 72 divided by 12 or is 6. So it takes 6 years for that interest rate to become 20,000. So over the long term, we can compare the 72 over 4% to the 72 over 12%. And it's a huge difference because at the age of 65, even though both of these started at 29 with $10,000, there's a $600,000 difference. So it's extremely important to know about interest rates and how they can help you become financially successful. So why is this important? Your money grows faster because interest from the past also earns you interest. So the more money you invest, the more exponential growth there is. So this is known as the magic of compounding. And yeah, this is just a helpful tool. We can post or we can put this in the comments if you guys want to check it out later. It just calculates, it's just a financial calculator. And these are examples of two different people. So one of them started investing earlier at the age of 8, and they put $2,000 in for about 9 years to when they were 17, and they stopped putting any more money in. But they're letting time work for them because over the span of almost 50 years, they accumulated $396,000. And this is mostly passive income. They're not really doing anything for most of their life. But the other kid, they started at 18 and they put a lot more money in each year, but they only ended up with $317,000, which shows how time is a huge or has a huge impact on how much money people earn by using compound interest. Because even though the second person put more money in, the first person has time working for them. So invest early. So this guy is named Warren Buffett, and he is one of the most well-known investors. Over He has over $1 billion in his net worth, which to be specific, his net worth is about $150.7 billion. And a quote from him is, if you don't find a way for money to work, if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. Meaning, if you don't find a way to make passive income, then you will be passively working to earn money. So this is where compound interest and investing come in and really help people just earn money by doing nothing. Not really, but yeah. So this is just a graph of the federal government cutting interest rates for the first time in a really long time. And interest rates, when interest rates are cut, interest rate cuts usually mean like when a country's central bank lowers the interest rate. And the central bank controls the price of borrowing money. And when they cut interest rates, it becomes cheaper to borrow money. This encourages people and businesses to spend and invest more. And this is often done to help the economy when businesses and or like when they want people and businesses to spend and invest more. And it's done when the economy is slowing down. So federal or loan interest rate cuts cause lower loan payments and cheaper borrowing so people can buy more stuff, and lower savings account interest so you earn less from saving. So this is just a little graphic that shows like the order this goes in. So after the federal rates are cut, borrowing costs go down, more buyers want to buy things, but demand also increases and prices go up. This slide talks about what happens right after the federal government cuts interest rates. So, first of all, the cost of capital goes down. That means borrowing becomes cheaper. So, for investors, especially in real estate, loans are a really big part of their costs. So, lower rates make projects more affordable, and that just incentivizes them to start more projects. Second, interest rate or increased property values tend to increase. So when borrowing is cheaper, more people want to buy or invest in real estate. And that higher demand usually pushes property prices up, especially in already high demand areas. So overall, interest rate cuts make investing cheaper and increase demand in the real estate market. Next, we have or the next two impacts are stronger competition for assets. So this just means cheaper loans, which means more people want to buy more buildings. So when it costs less to borrow, investing looks more affordable. So buyers want to jump in. This creates more competition and yeah, impacts on cap rates. So cap rates are basically a way to measure how good of a deal a property is by comparing how much money it makes to how much it costs. When borrowing is cheaper, investors are okay with making a little bit of less profits because their loan costs are lower. This usually makes cap rates go down, especially in places where lots of people want to buy property. So next we have the long-term effects of the federal government cutting interest rates. This can cause increased development activity, and this just means more buildings and development. So when borrowing money is cheaper, developers are more likely to start projects. So that means more development. And similarly, continued demand for multifamily. This just means that there's more demand for multifamily housing. So basically, like apartment buildings. And when interest rate drops, mortgage rates also usually drop. That may sound like good news for buyers, but lower rates can actually push home prices up. And when homes get more expensive, many people decide to continue renting instead of buying. So the demand for apartments are still strong. Potential for rising inflation. When the federal government increases interest rates, it is trying to boost the economy by making it cheaper to borrow money. But there's a downside to this, and it's that if people and businesses start spending more, prices for goods and services begin to rise. And this is called inflation. So if inflation gets too high, the federal government might have to raise interest rates again in the future to slow things down. So even though borrowing is cheaper now, that could change later if inflation starts to rise.